The sun has dipped below the tree line, and a soft indigo veil drapes itself across the colonial village. A chill begins to rise from the damp earth, winding its way through stone paths and wooden fences, brushing past window panes with gentle persistence. In this quiet hour, the world does not sleep, not yet, but it prepares. On the narrow main street, horses have long returned to their stables, their breath still visible in the cooling air. Wagon wheels rest still, and shutters creak faintly as a soft breeze stirs them. You can almost hear the last of the hammering from the blacksmith's forge, now more a memory than a sound, as silence takes hold. The village has grown hushed, like an orchestra lowering its instruments before a final, delicate note. Inside one modest wooden home, nestled near a grove of poplars, a single candle has been lit. Its flame flickers gently in the parlor window, casting long shadows that stretch across the hand-hewn floorboards. The wax melts slowly, forming a tiny pool at the candle's base. It is not just light, it is a signal. A signal that the day is ending. That the family who lives here is beginning the slow, careful transition into night. The walls of the house are thick with the smell of wood smoke and beeswax. The fireplace, though smaller than in grander homes, has been the heart of the house all day. It is where bread was baked, cider warmed, and even laundry boiled. Now, the fire grows low, embers glowing a quiet red. The family knows how to make the most of the coals. A heavy iron pot still hangs above them, keeping warm the last of the evening's stew. In one corner of the room, the matriarch of the house carefully extinguishes the lamp that had been used to read by earlier, its oil nearly gone. She moves with practiced ease, fingers stained faintly with soap and flour, sleeves rolled up above her elbows. The small brass candleholder she carries reflects the golden light upward, illuminating her gentle, tired face as she walks from room to room, making sure each one is ready for the night. The children, barefoot and bundled in hand-stitched nightshirts, are whispering stories to one another in the loft above. Their laughter is hushed, not quite mischievous, more like the echo of daytime that doesn't want to fade just yet. The floorboards creak gently beneath their small feet. A single lantern burns on a hook near their beds, its wick trimmed short, its glow low and safe. They know this light. It is the same one lit every evening, steady, dependable, warm. Outside, the world has grown completely blue. The last of the chickens have roosted. The cows, milked and bedded down. A fox pads silently across the distant orchard, unseen but not unnoticed by the family dog who gives one soft, unbothered bark from beside the back door. The father, wearing a woolen vest and carrying a small wooden box of tools, gently taps at the front door's lock. He checks the latch, oiling it just a little, before whispering a brief prayer under his breath. This door will hold firm tonight, as it has for many nights before. The house is quiet now, almost sacred in its stillness. Only the sound of the candle's occasional hiss, the distant chirp of crickets beyond the fields, and the faint ticking of the tall clock in the corner breaks the hush. This clock, wound with care each week, is older than the house itself, its chimes kept muffled with cloth so the children may sleep through the night. A cat curls at the edge of the hearth, tail flicking once, then still. A woolen blanket is folded neatly across the back of a rocking chair. On the wooden table, a closed Bible rests beside a pair of spectacles and a sprig of dried lavender. Everything in its place. Everything prepared. This home, like so many others in colonial towns across New England and the mid-Atlantic, is not simply a shelter, it is a rhythm, a routine. It breathes with its inhabitants, sighing into sleep with them. And now, as the moon rises behind the trees, casting silver light across the thatched roof, the family begins to surrender to the quiet magic of night. The candlelight grows dimmer. Its flame dances slower. In the parlor, where the wood planks meet at careful seams, a soft breeze passes through the seams in the windowpane. Not unwelcome. Just a reminder that tomorrow will come. Another day of work. Another evening of preparation. Another twilight like this one. But for now, everything is still. Everything is safe. Everything is asleep, or almost. And beneath the soft whisper of candlelight, the house leans into the night, and dreams with you. The candle burns low, its wick now curled at the tip like a delicate thread of smoke waiting to form. In the colonial home, every flicker of light is precious. And every flame must be tended, carefully and silently. As the evening deepens, the mistress of the house reaches for her wick trimmer, a small iron tool with flat blades and a shallow box on one side to catch the burnt tip. She moves gracefully through the parlor, leaning gently toward the nearest candle. The room sighs with warmth. The light dims for just a second as the charred wick is snipped and falls into the trimmer's box. Then, the flame steadies, clear, golden, and strong again. This is a ritual as old as memory in this home. Candles are not to be wasted. They are hand-dipped with care, dozens at a time, and hung in long rows to dry in the attic each season. Each one represents hours of labor, melting, dipping, cooling, again and again, until a single, serviceable taper is born. Tonight, 5 candles are in use across the home. One on the small writing desk in the father's study, where a letter half-written rests beside a dried quill. One in the kitchen window, where its glow offers a soft outline of herbs hanging to dry above. 2 upstairs, where the children are settling. And one in the parlor, the heart of the house, where the evening's final chores unfold beneath its gentle light. The shutters must be closed now. Each wooden panel, thick and sturdy, is swung inward on iron hinges. The windows here are small and many-paned, just 6 panes to each sash, held by narrow strips of lead. The glass is wavy and imperfect, catching the candlelight in ghost-like streaks. Colonial glass is handmade, and no 2 panes are alike. This unevenness softens the night. The world outside seems to ripple like water. The father closes the shutters with care, making sure each latch hooks into its notch. The wind outside has grown sharper. Leaves rustle low to the ground, and somewhere far off, an owl calls once, brief, and then silent again. The shutters are not only for privacy or warmth. They are security. They are tradition. Once closed, the home feels folded inward, like cupping your hands around a small flame. Inside, the mood shifts. Everything narrows. Focus settles on the here and now. Outside no longer matters. The day is done, and the house has become a world unto itself. In the kitchen, the mother gathers a bundle of freshly washed rags and folds them neatly into the corner cupboard. She snuffs out the small lamp near the hearth, leaving only the glow from the single candle in the window. That light is left for those who might be passing on the road, rare, but possible. A coachman, perhaps. Or a neighbor returning late. The glow of a window light is a quiet kindness. In the loft above, the children giggle softly as they take turns pulling the thick wool curtains closed over their sleeping space. The curtains are homemade, sewn from linen and dyed with walnut and bark, and they are suspended from a simple rope strung across the loft's low ceiling. When drawn, they make a tiny room within a room, a nighttime fort of warmth and secrecy. The oldest child trims the wick of their lantern, mimicking the careful gesture of their mother downstairs. A small snip, the tip of the wick falls into a folded scrap of paper. It is folded again and set aside. Even the scraps will be reused, to help light the fire the next morning. In these homes, nothing is ever wasted. Downstairs, the father checks the final latch on the back door. He pauses at the spinning wheel, making sure the flax has been wound and the treadle is stilled. The family Bible is returned to its place on the high shelf, beside the almanac and a weathered map of the 13 colonies. The mother lifts the wick trimmer one last time and approaches the final candle. But she hesitates. It is not yet time to snuff the flame. There is one more task to be done, and the candlelight will help her finish it. She moves toward a small wooden box near the hearth. It is filled with written letters, tied in bundles with faded blue ribbon. Some are hers. Some are older, letters from her mother, passed down. And some are her husband's, written during his travels for trade 2 winters ago. The box is more than storage. It is a repository of memory. A quiet archive of love, of longing, of everyday life captured on rough parchment with careful hands. She gently selects one letter from the middle of the stack. It is from her sister, written just after the birth of her first child, in a neighboring colony. The handwriting is neat, the ink now faded to a warm brown. She reads it softly to herself, not aloud, but with her lips moving as if to remember the voice it once carried. The candle flickers beside her. The home is fully sealed now. Wick trimmed. Shutters latched. Windows closed. The hearth swept clean. And in this stillness, you can hear the house itself breathe. The wooden beams creak softly as the cool of night settles into the walls. The clock ticks in its measured rhythm. Outside, the village sleeps behind shuttered windows and darkened doors. The tavern has gone quiet. The church bell will not ring until morning. Inside the colonial home, only the soft orange light of the candle remains. The wick stands straight. The flame wavers gently. And now, finally, the mother steps forward and pinches the wick between the snuffer's jaws. A delicate breath. A curl of smoke. The room darkens. But the warmth remains. The hearth is quiet now. Not silent, never truly silent, but hushed, like a whisper that hums beneath the surface. The fire that once roared with crackling logs and glowing sparks is now reduced to its final breath. A bed of orange embers lies nestled in soft ash, the remains of a day's warmth, glowing like the pulse of the home. In a colonial house, the hearth is not simply a place to cook, it is the soul. Every morning, it is born anew, fed with splinters and kindling, coaxed gently to life. Throughout the day, it nourishes and protects, boiling stews, drying mittens, warming chilled hands. And now, at day's end, it begins to sleep, retreating into coals and flickers. The mother kneels quietly on the brick hearth. Her hands move gently with an old broom made of birch twigs, sweeping the scattered ash into a woven tin pan. She hums, just barely, an old tune her grandmother taught her, soft and winding, the kind of melody that sounds like wind through trees. Beside her, a long-handled poker rests against the wall. She doesn't use it now. The fire needs no stirring. Only watching. Only tending. The father enters the room, carrying a small iron kettle filled with warm water. He pours it slowly into a basin, steam rising in delicate spirals. The smell of iron and ash fills the air, earthy, familiar, grounding. He folds a cloth over the edge and lets it soak. Soon, he'll wash his hands, rinsing away the day's labor, woodworking, mending, patching fences before the frost sets in. A lantern burns low on the mantel, its light barely reaching the room's corners. Above it, a hand-carved wooden shelf holds small relics, a clay pipe, a lock of baby hair tied with thread, a worn thimble passed from mother to daughter. Symbols of continuity. Quiet things that speak of long years and careful lives. The fire pops once, sharp, sudden, but not alarming. Just a final voice from a log not quite finished. The children, now half asleep in their beds above, listen to that sound as they drift. It is part of the lullaby of the house. The ticking clock, the hush of the wind, the soft crackle of embers. These are the sounds that protect them. That tell them the night is unfolding as it always has. The hearth has seen every moment of the family's life. First steps taken on its warm stone floor. Illness soothed with broth simmered above it. Letters written beside its heat in the cold months, hands wrapped in cloth to fight the bite of winter. It has witnessed joy, sorrow, laughter, arguments, and long silences. Tonight, as the hour grows late, it watches again. The father takes a small shovel and gently piles the hot coals into a tight cluster in the back corner of the fireplace. This will help them last the night. In the morning, the mother will uncover them and breathe them back to life. She will add kindling and split wood, coaxing flame from memory. This is a secret knowledge passed down through generations. How to keep a home warm through the longest, darkest nights. How to find life in embers. On the wall beside the hearth, a row of drying herbs hangs: sage, lavender, rosemary. Their scent, warmed by the lingering heat, drifts through the room. It is calming, earthy. A medicine of the air. A cat pads softly into the parlor and curls in the hearth's corner, paws tucked beneath its body, tail wrapping around itself. It knows this place. It knows that even without flames, warmth lingers here. Deep in the bricks. Stored in the stones. Waiting for morning. The father sits down in the chair closest to the fire, his hands resting on his knees. He doesn't speak. There is no need to. The quiet is full. Complete. The mother joins him, folding a small woolen shawl over her shoulders. Her eyes reflect the glow of the coals. She listens, to the fire, to the house, to the beating of time. They sit like this for a while. No urgency. No rush. The fire dims slowly, respectfully, like a performer taking their final bow. And then, when the last flicker fades into dark red, and the room settles into shadow, they rise, together. The father places the screen in front of the fireplace. The iron mesh is cool to the touch. He sets it carefully, as if tucking the fire in for the night. A small, round trivet near the hearth holds a warm brick wrapped in cloth. Tonight it will go beneath the bed covers, to warm the sheets. It's a simple comfort, handed down through generations. The children will sleep more soundly with it at their feet. As the couple ascends the stairs, their footsteps slow and deliberate, the room behind them remains still. Only the soft creak of the floor and the final sigh of warm air rising mark their passing. Downstairs, the hearth glows no more. But it is not forgotten. It rests. And in its stillness, it holds every story of the day, keeping them safe until morning returns. The parlor, now lit by a single candle and the memory of the fire, seems to breathe on its own. Its wooden floorboards, smoothed by years of footsteps and scrubbing, are warm beneath bare feet. The corners of the room hold quiet shadows, soft and unmoving, and in the center, the candle flame gently bends with every sigh of the room. This is where stories are kept. Not written in ink or on paper, but woven into the fabric of time. Into the chairs, the table, the woven rug beneath it, and into the air itself. The parlor is where voices echo the longest, even in silence. Earlier in the evening, as twilight settled and the shutters were drawn tight, this room was alive with soft conversation. The family gathered here, as they do every night, to speak not of great matters, but of simple things: the weather, the turn of the crops, a neighbor's new calf, or a recipe passed down from grandmother's kitchen. These were the stories that mattered. Not because they were grand, but because they belonged to them. Now, the voices have faded, but their presence lingers. The rocking chair beside the fireplace still sways slightly, as if remembering the rhythm of the mother's body as she mended a seam or finished a line of knitting. A half-stitched sampler rests on a small wooden stand nearby, the needle threaded and waiting, frozen mid-thought. A worn book lies on the parlor table, its cover faded, its spine cracked from use. It is a collection of fables, some biblical, some English, some local legends passed from settler to settler. The children often beg for one before bed, even if they know it by heart. Especially if they know it by heart. There is comfort in repetition. In words spoken again and again beneath the same roof. And tonight, when the youngest child asked for the story of the girl who planted stars, the father smiled. He told it slowly, in that even, thoughtful way he always does. She was no older than you, he said, when she found the silver seeds in the base of the old oak. And one by one, each night, she planted them in the sky. The children leaned close, blankets wrapped around their shoulders, eyes fixed not on his face, but on the candle, as if the flame itself carried the story forward. And by the time the harvest moon rose, he continued, she had filled the heavens so full that even the birds forgot which way was down. It's just a story. But it lives here now, in the walls. Like all the others. There are other stories, too. Quieter ones, like the tale of the cousin who never returned from the sea. Or the letter found in the bottom of the flower bin during the winter of heavy snow. Or the night the baby arrived early, and the midwife had to be summoned by lantern through the storm. These stories are not told every night. But they are remembered. And in the hush of the parlor, you can almost hear them breathing, soft, like wind beneath a door. The walls are papered with hand-printed patterns, faded from years of candlelight. Tiny vines twist in repetition across the surface, symbols of growth, of holding on. And the window panes, now shuttered, reflect the candle's light in tiny points, like distant stars, planted by stories themselves. In one corner of the room, a small writing desk waits. Its surface is worn, ink-stained, and scattered with quills and sealing wax. The father sometimes sits here at night, pen in hand, drafting letters by candlelight. Letters to family in distant towns. Letters of business. Letters never sent. Beneath the desk drawer lies a stack of these forgotten pages, musings, dreams, half-thoughts committed to paper, tucked away as quietly as they were written. Even they become stories, in time. The parlor knows how to listen. It remembers the days when it echoed with the boots of soldiers during the war, brief guests, fed bread and lent warmth. It remembers when the windows were covered in cloth to keep in heat and keep out fear. It remembers when there were fewer voices here, and then more. Generations pass, but the room remains. It carries their voices. Their laughter. Their arguments. Their prayers. Tonight, it is still. The candle burns low, and the shadows on the wall seem to whisper all on their own. A chair creaks as it settles. A floorboard sighs. The clock ticks in the hallway, muffled but steady. The cat, who once slept by the hearth, has now taken to the parlor rug. It curls into a familiar shape, its breathing slow and deep. It dreams of stories too, perhaps, of mice and sunbeams and quiet afternoons. Soon, the candle will be snuffed, and the parlor will be cloaked in darkness. But even in sleep, it will remember. It will hold the stories gently, like pressed flowers in a book, until morning's light returns through the shutters and the house awakens again. Upstairs, where the ceiling slopes low and the floorboards are cool beneath bare feet, the final tasks of the evening unfold in soft, practiced rhythm. The candlelight is gentle here. It pools on the small wooden dresser, casting long shadows across the basin of water and the ceramic dish holding a bar of lye soap. The mirror above is clouded with age, its silver backing worn thin, reflecting not faces but shapes, flickers of movement, outlines of routine. In this hush, a mother sits behind her daughter, a wooden brush in her hand. The daughter, perhaps 8 or 9, rests quietly on a stool, her linen nightdress tucked around her knees. She does not fidget. She knows this ritual well. It is comforting, the feel of the brush's weight, the soft pull at her scalp, the slow cadence of strokes that begin at the crown and descend toward her shoulders like waves folding against a quiet shore. 100 strokes. That is the tradition. Not because anyone counted, but because that is how long it takes to feel the day release its hold. To draw the warmth of the candlelight into the bones. To settle the breath, the mind, the heart. The brush is made of boxwood, its bristles natural and worn down over years. It once belonged to the mother's own mother. And perhaps before that, another. Each stroke is slow, deliberate, almost ceremonial. The daughter closes her eyes. The candle's flickering flame paints shadows on her eyelids. She listens, not to words, but to sound. The faint creak of the chair beneath them. The brush catching gently in a knot and then smoothing it free. The soft, rhythmic breathing of her mother behind her. Sometimes, her mother hums. An old tune. No lyrics. Just a melody that wins and folds in on itself like a lullaby no one quite remembers the words to. It floats in the room, mixing with the warmth of the beeswax candle and the faint scent of lavender oil rubbed into the bristles. Down the hallway, her siblings are preparing for bed too. One smooths the quilt across the mattress. Another folds yesterday's shirt, placing it in the wooden chest at the foot of the bed. These motions are quiet and careful. They are part of a rhythm that repeats every night, unspoken but shared. In the corner of the room, a cradle rocks gently. The baby, nearly asleep, sucks softly on a corner of the quilt. A faint whimper now and then, but nothing urgent. Only the sound of transition, of letting go of wakefulness and slipping into the waiting arms of sleep. The mother finishes the last of the strokes. She sets the brush down on the dresser with a soft click and begins to braid the child's hair, not tight, but loose, in a way that keeps it from tangling as she sleeps. Her fingers move like they've done this 1,000 times. Because they have. "Almost done, my love," she whispers. The daughter nods, not speaking. Her eyes stay closed, and her breathing deepens. The room has grown warmer, not from fire, but from stillness. A warmth that settles in once the day has been folded away and the body remembers it can rest. The braid is tied with a soft strip of linen. A candle flickers in the corner, its flame reflecting in the mirror just once before returning to stillness. The shadows it casts dance lightly across the ceiling beams, oak, darkened by age and smoke. Each one bears the marks of generations, scratches, stains, and tiny carvings made by small hands on long winter nights. The mother cups her daughter's face in both hands, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. She kisses it gently. And then she rises, moving to the basin to wash her own face. She dips a cloth into the still warm water, wrings it out, and presses it gently to her cheeks. The water is scented with a few drops of rosemary. Sharp, clean, awakening even in its calm. She moves the cloth across her brow, behind her ears, beneath her jaw. Her eyes close. She breathes in. The candle crackles softly. Outside, the wind picks up again, pressing gently against the shutters. Leaves tumble past the window, unseen but imagined. Somewhere, an animal rustles in the underbrush near the edge of the property. Life continues, quietly. Back in the room, the daughter has climbed into bed. She lies on her side, curled beneath a quilt patched with scraps of old shirts, worn aprons, and leftover muslin. Each piece tells a story, and though the girl doesn't know them all yet, she feels their presence like a hand on her shoulder. The mother snuffs the candle with a brass cone. A curl of smoke rises, then fades. She does not need light now. She knows the room by heart. She moves toward the cradle, gently tucks the quilt around the baby, and hums once more. Not for long. Just a few notes. Long enough for the room to absorb the music. For the children to feel the nearness of love even as they drift. Then she leaves, closing the door without a sound. The upstairs hall is quiet. Only the faint ticking of the mantel clock below, the distant breath of the house, and the memory of brushing hair by candlelight remain. Downstairs, in the last lit room of the house, the father stands by the door. The candle beside him burns low now, its wax softened, pooling at the base of the brass holder. Its flickering casts a long golden stripe across the wooden floorboards, stretching toward the entryway like a final, gentle wave goodbye. It is time to lock the door. Not with urgency, not with fear, but with reverence. As if sealing the home from the outside world is itself a sacred act. The wooden door is thick and heavy, made of planks joined with iron nails and a crossbeam brace. Its surface is worn smooth by years of hands reaching for the handle, boots brushing the threshold, and little fingers tracing its grain while waiting for Papa to return home. It has heard greetings, goodbyes, and the scratch of wind during winter storms. The father places his palm flat against the door. He feels the coolness of the iron latch. It has been used thousands of times, and still it clicks into place with a quiet precision. With one motion, he lifts the locking bar into the iron hook, a simple, sturdy mechanism that keeps the night on the other side. Click. The sound is soft, but final. It echoes briefly through the room, not as a warning, but as reassurance. The door is locked. The family is safe. There is another lock, just beneath. A small iron key fits snugly into the lower bolt. The father turns it, slowly, until he hears the dull thunk of wood meeting wood. He slips the key into a leather pouch nailed to the inside wall, a pouch worn and cracked, inherited from his own father. The pouch hasn't moved in years. There is comfort in its constancy. Outside, the world has darkened completely. No lanterns glow on the road. No footsteps echo across the path. Only the rustling of leaves, the sigh of trees, and the distant chirr of insects remain. Beyond the village, darkness has swallowed the fields, the woods, the rivers. But inside the house, there is only light and silence, and warmth. The father stands still for a moment longer. He presses gently on the door, making sure it holds. He listens, not for danger, but for the absence of it. And when he hears nothing but the house's own slow breathing, he nods once and steps back. Near the threshold sits a small wooden bench. On it are the boots he wore that morning, dusted with dried soil from the garden. He removes them now, placing them side by side. Not hurried. Not careless. They will be ready again come morning. Beside the boots lies a woolen scarf. He picks it up, folds it twice, and sets it in the basket beneath the bench. Above the basket hangs a peg holding his coat, a heavy brown one with wooden buttons and a torn lining that no longer keeps all the wind out. Still, he will wear it until the first frost. Maybe longer. A small rug lies across the threshold, a woven braid of old shirts and sackcloth, soft beneath bare feet. The candlelight makes the colors, once vivid, now faded, glow with an amber warmth. Blue, ochre, rust red, all melted into memory. In the corner by the door, a musket rests upright in its cradle. It has not been touched in weeks. But it stands there, a silent guardian, kept not out of threat but out of respect. The father touches the barrel briefly, then lets his hand fall away. There is no need for it tonight. Above the door hangs a sprig of dried yarrow and sage. It was placed there in spring, an old tradition, meant to bring peace and good fortune to the home. The herbs crumble slightly when touched, but their scent remains faintly in the air, clean, earthy, protective. The father reaches up and pinches the candle wick gently with a brass snuffer. A faint hiss. A final flicker. Then, darkness. But not cold darkness. Not fearful. Only the darkness of completion. Of a door locked not against the world, but in trust that the world outside will sleep, too. He moves away from the entrance now, his feet silent on the wood. His hand grazes the wall as he walks, steady and sure, knowing every creak in the boards, every corner of every room. In the hallway, the clock ticks on. In the upstairs rooms, the children sleep. And somewhere, a kettle cools slowly on the stove. The door stands behind him, solid, locked, and true. It has done its duty, just as he has. And now, with the house sealed and the candle snuffed, the last light of day fades from the home. And the night begins in earnest. Upstairs, the world has grown very quiet. The floorboards creak faintly beneath small feet, but even those sounds are softened now, like whispers wrapped in cotton. In the children's room, tucked beneath the sloped roof and warmed by quilts and candlelight, a sacred ritual takes place, one that repeats each evening without fail. It is time for prayers. The candle, placed carefully on the low shelf between two small beds, flickers with a gentle amber glow. Its light paints golden halos on the whitewashed walls and warms the corners of the room where night has already settled in. Shadows gather behind the rocking chair, beneath the chest of drawers, along the window ledge where a tiny pane lets in just a sliver of moonlight. The children kneel beside their beds. Their nightclothes are simple, soft linen shirts for the boys, flannel gowns for the girls. Bare feet rest on braided rugs, and fingers intertwine in practiced folds. The eldest child begins first, her voice quiet, steady, shaped by memory and repetition. Now I lay me down to sleep. The others follow, voices overlapping in a rhythm both chaotic and sweet. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. This prayer has been passed down through generations. Their parents said it when they were children, and their grandparents before them. The words feel like a lullaby. Familiar. Protective. Each syllable spoken into the dark with the same gentle urgency, just loud enough to be heard by heaven. If I should die before I wake. They don't truly fear the words. Not anymore. To them, they are poetry. A rhyme wrapped in safety. A quiet bargain with the night. I pray the Lord my soul to take. The room falls still. The candle crackles once, casting a tiny spark upward before returning to its soft flame. After the prayer, each child adds their own thoughts, one by one. Whispers of hope and gratitude, offered to the hush like feathers floating upward. Thank you for the bread tonight, says one. Please help Papa with the barn roof, says another. Watch over Sarah and her baby, a younger one adds, eyes still closed, speaking of a neighbor down the road. Their voices are not hurried. The room makes space for every word. No one rushes them. There is no bell to ring, no bedtime scoldings tonight. Only the slow, winding descent into dreams. The youngest child, barely 4, murmurs something too soft to hear. But the others smile, recognizing the tone, the cadence. He has spoken from his heart, even if his words haven't quite formed. Once the prayers are done, the children climb into bed. The quilts are thick and heavy, made from scraps of old aprons, shirts, and flour sacks, stitched together by their mother, one square at a time. Each patch tells a small story, a tear mended, a favorite color, a hidden name embroidered in the corner. One child tucks a wooden toy beneath the covers. Another pulls the quilt up to their chin and sighs, content. The eldest rises briefly and moves to the window. She pulls the curtain aside, just a little, peeking out into the night. The sky is deep indigo, scattered with stars, and the branches of the sycamore tree sway gently in the wind. She sees the candle still burning faintly in the downstairs hallway. A promise of presence. A light that will stay until the house fully settles into sleep. She lets the curtain fall and returns to bed. The candle near their beds has nearly burned down. Its light dances against the low ceiling, tracing gentle arcs that lull the eyes toward sleep. The children lie still now. No more fidgeting. No more words. Only the slow, even breath of bodies unwinding from the day. And then, the mother enters. Her presence is quiet, but unmistakable. She carries another candle in a holder, her shadow stretching along the wall behind her. She steps lightly, checking each bed with a glance, each quilt with a gentle tug. She leans down to kiss the youngest on the forehead. Then the next. And the next. To the eldest, she offers a warm smile and smooths a stray lock of hair from her brow. You said your prayers, she whispers. A nod in reply. Good, she says softly, sleep now. She places her candle on the shelf and takes the nearly spent one in its place. A curl of smoke rises as the old flame is snuffed. The room dims further. The corners deepen. The air grows heavier with stillness. The mother turns to the door. She does not close it entirely, only enough to keep the light soft. Just enough to say, I am near. And then, she is gone. Outside, the wind hums a lullaby through the trees. Crickets chirp softly, a rhythm like breathing. And inside, the children dream, guarded by candlelight, watched by their prayers, and wrapped in the silence of the night. The kitchen, once alive with the rattle of pots and the warmth of baking bread, now stands in quiet stillness. The hearth, which had glowed red through supper, has surrendered to soft gray ash. A single coal glimmers faintly beneath the blackened iron kettle, a final ember refusing to surrender to the night. Even that, in time, will vanish, leaving only a gentle warmth in the bricks. The wooden table, long and slightly worn, still bears the marks of the day. A faint circle where a pitcher once stood. A few crumbs left behind from the evening's cornbread. A linen cloth now folded and resting on its corner. Nothing is hurried. In a colonial home, nighttime is a patient visitor. Above the hearth hangs a row of dried herbs, sage, rosemary, lavender, swaying gently in the breeze that slips through the window frame. Their scent lingers in the air, mingling with the faint trace of wood smoke and sweet apples. The kitchen smells like memory itself. The copper pots have been cleaned and hung carefully on their hooks. Their polished bellies catch the last bit of candlelight and reflect the room in soft distortions, curved shadows of shelves, jars, and cooling pans. The big wooden spoon, stained from stew, has been set in its place. The spice jars, nutmeg, cinnamon, cloves, are stacked neatly in the open cupboard, each hand labeled with faded ink. Even the mice seem to know it is time for rest. Not a scratch or scurry disturbs the floorboards. The room breathes with quiet dignity, as though it too is preparing for sleep. In the corner, the bread box sits closed. Inside, a half loaf wrapped in cloth waits for tomorrow's breakfast. Nearby, a jug of cider is sealed with wax and covered with a muslin cloth to keep the summer flies at bay. No one will touch it until morning, when the fire is kindled again and the kitchen reawakens. On the back wall, the window shows a slice of night. The moon sits low, casting its pale light across the orchard. The silhouettes of apple trees stretch across the ground like quiet sentinels. A breeze lifts the branches, and one leaf taps against the glass, tick, 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 a lullaby for a house already half asleep. Beside the fireplace, the old wooden rocker sways just once, gently, as though moved by memory rather than hand. It had held grandmother this evening, humming softly as she shelled peas into a bowl. Her song had no words, just a melody passed down through time, now gone quiet, but still lingering in the corners of the room. The candle on the kitchen shelf burns low. Its wax pools at the base, trembling with each flicker. Shadows stretch long across the floor. The table legs cast narrow silhouettes, and the chair backs form soft prisons of light. Everything feels wrapped in hush. Even the ticking of the wall clock, usually so precise, seems slower now. More thoughtful. As though the kitchen has decided it need not keep time quite so strictly, not while the rest of the house sleeps. Near the doorway, the broom stands upright, leaning slightly, as though tired from the day's sweeping. Its bristles are lined with the dust of flour and firewood, but no one will use it again until morning. The floor beneath is swept clean, cool against bare feet. The back door is bolted. Above it, the wooden shelf holds jars of preserved peaches, rows of beans pickled in brine, and a crock of lard sealed tight. These are the treasures of the home, earned through effort, kept with care, and waiting patiently through the dark. The silence here is not empty, it is full. Full of the day's echoes now resting. Full of gratitude in stillness. Full of all the unseen things that a kitchen witnesses but never tells, the quiet worries spoken while stirring broth, the laughter of children sneaking a biscuit, the soft sobs of a mother when no one else is near. All of it lingers in this room. Now, it too sleeps. The candle flickers once more. A final wave of light washes across the hearth, touches the handle of the oven door, glances across the shelf of dishes. And then, with a gentle sigh, the flame dies. The room is plunged into softness. Not darkness, because even in sleep, the kitchen glows with memory. With warmth stored in bricks. With smells woven into the wood. With stories etched into every groove of the floorboards. Tomorrow, the fire will return. Bread will rise. Butter will be churned. Feet will thump across the planks, and the clatter of the morning will begin again. But tonight, the kitchen rests. It has earned its sleep. And so, in this moment, still and shadowed and sacred, the kitchen dreams in silence, bathed in the secret peace of candlelight. A hallway stretches between the kitchen and the back stairs, cloaked in darkness, except for a single lantern hanging from a black iron hook. Its light is different from the bright flare of candles, softer, steadier. The flame inside the glass globe sways gently with each movement of air, sending golden halos dancing on the paneled walls. This lantern, lit each night at the same hour, is an old friend to the house. Its frame is made of tin, punched with tiny holes in the shape of stars. When lit, the stars cast their pattern across the ceiling, like a small private sky glowing over the wooden floor. A pair of slippers sit just beneath it, tucked neatly at the base of the stairs. They belong to the eldest daughter, who walks this hallway each night to check on the doors and windows, whispering to herself as she goes, not out of fear, but out of habit. Her footsteps are careful, quiet. Her long cotton nightdress brushes the floor. She moves with reverence, as though not wanting to disturb the lantern's glow. The house, in these hours, feels like a sacred place. The wallpaper along the hallway is faintly faded, a floral pattern in soft blue. In the flickering lantern light, the flowers seem to shift and curl as if they were alive. Time is slower here, and the walls remember much. Arguments whispered too loudly. Songs hummed while carrying water. Even the sound of boots stomping in from a muddy day. A side table sits halfway down the hall, holding a ceramic dish filled with matches, a brass snuffer, and a tiny pewter bell. The bell is only ever rung in emergencies. Its sound is sharp and quick and pierces even the deepest sleep. But tonight, it rests undisturbed. Everything in this passage is quiet. Intentional. Preserved. As the girl walks past, she lifts the lantern from its hook and carries it with her. The flame inside shudders slightly, adjusting to its new motion. Light ripples across the hallway, revealing old beams above and the well-worn grain of the wooden floor beneath. She pauses at the front parlor door and listens. Inside, her father is snoring gently, a low steady rhythm from his armchair. He had stayed up later than usual, reading from his leather-bound almanac, eyes growing heavier with each word until sleep pulled him into its arms. She doesn't open the door. She simply nods to herself and moves on. As she walks, the lantern flickers again, casting light across a framed sampler hanging on the wall. It reads, in careful stitched letters, "Let thy light shine even in darkness." The thread is faded now, but the message endures. She reaches the main stairs and peers up into the dark. The lantern casts a soft cone of light on the first few steps. Beyond that, the stairwell disappears into shadow, like a tunnel carved into memory. The girl hesitates, not out of fear, but respect. Upstairs, the rest of the family sleeps. Her little brothers lie curled beneath quilts, each clutching a wooden toy. Their dreams are filled with fields and horses and the smell of summer grass. Her mother sleeps beside the baby, a gentle hand resting across the cradle's edge, rising and falling with each breath. It is not yet time to go up. The girl turns instead to the back door. She checks the latch, firm, tight. Then turns the iron key one last time, its sound echoing slightly in the quiet. The outside world stays where it belongs, for now. A gust of wind brushes against the windows, pressing gently at the panes. The lantern's flame flutters in response, then regains its balance. The hallway shifts again under its glow, wood gleams, the wallpaper softens, and everything becomes part of a moving canvas of warmth and shadows. The girl carries the lantern back down the hall, her reflection trailing beside her in the glass. She pauses before the small mirror near the kitchen. In its frame, she sees herself as a blurred silhouette, a soft face, loose hair, eyes a little sleepy. For a moment, she smiles, not from joy or sadness, but from the simple, quiet satisfaction of caring for her home. She places the lantern back on its hook. The flame steadies once more, as if glad to rest. The stars punched in its tin side scatter light across the wall again, casting the ceiling in a constellation of amber specks. She presses a hand to the warm tin, just for a second, and then turns away. Her slippers make no sound as she climbs the stairs. The lantern remains behind, like a small beacon holding the house together in the stillness. A nightlight not for children, but for the very bones of the home. Below, the hallway sleeps. Wrapped in wood and wax and woven thread, it guards its secrets in flickering silence. And the lantern glows on. A single, gentle promise against the night. In the quietest room of the house, far from the parlor and the children's chambers, lies a small linen closet tucked behind a narrow wooden door. It creaks when opened, gently, politely, as if it knows its hinges should never startle anyone at this hour. Inside, the scent of lavender hangs in the air, faint but comforting, left behind by sachets of dried petals hidden between folds. The linens themselves are soft from years of use, pressed with care, stacked by season, and tied with fraying cotton ribbons. A woman stands before them in the hush of candlelight. The mother of the house. Her apron is untied now, hanging loosely at her sides. A fine linen nightcap covers her hair. She looks tired, not from exhaustion but from the peaceful weight of a long, full day. In her arms is a basket, woven of reed and pine, filled with towels and cloth napkins still warm from the hearth's edge, where they had hung earlier, drying by flickering firelight. She hums softly. Just a low lullaby she once sang to her babies. One by one, she lifts the folded linens and places them onto the shelves. Her movements are quiet, methodical, like a ritual passed from mother to daughter across generations. Each piece tells a story. A tablecloth stitched with initials from a wedding day. A towel patched where the corner frayed from years of use. A napkin marked faintly with a stain of berry juice from last spring's harvest. She runs her hands across the fabric slowly, smoothing the creases, not out of perfectionism, but reverence. In a home like this, the smallest things carry the largest memories. Outside the closet, the rest of the house seems paused in breath. Only the sound of the candle wick occasionally crackling in its holder gives shape to the silence. On the wall beside her, a narrow shelf holds a small box made of walnut wood. Inside the box are private things. Quiet things. The sort of small, practical treasures that colonial women often kept close. A pair of mother-of-pearl buttons, a folded letter tied with twine, a thimble engraved with the faintest swirl pattern. And tucked carefully beneath them, a lock of a child's hair, wrapped in linen and bound with thread. It is from the daughter who didn't live to grow up here. The one whose name is never spoken out loud but whose shadow still lingers gently in the rhythm of the home. The mother doesn't open the box tonight. She simply touches the lid with the edge of her fingers, as though acknowledging it in prayer. Then, from the top shelf, she pulls a long piece of muslin and drapes it over the folded stacks. This is how she protects them from dust, from bugs, from time itself. It is a soft veil over softness, a final gesture of care. The room grows warmer for a moment, as if glowing in the sincerity of her touch. She closes the closet door slowly, listening to the wood catch in its frame. The click of the latch is a punctuation mark, firm, final, and peaceful. In the hallway, the lantern's glow still ripples. Shadows move as if they too are stretching before bed. The tin stars cast their ancient shapes on the floorboards, like echoes of forgotten constellations. The mother walks past the light and down a few steps into a small storage room. It is here that secrets sleep. Colonial homes had no safes, no lockboxes with brass dials. Their treasures were in corners, tucked behind baskets or folded into flour sacks. Beneath the floorboard closest to the far wall is a hidden compartment. She kneels slowly, her knees familiar with the creak of the wood. With a practiced hand, she lifts the board and reaches in. A leather pouch. A few silver coins. A pair of earrings once worn on her wedding day. And a tiny journal bound in oilskin. She doesn't read it tonight. But her fingers rest on its cover, just long enough to feel the heartbeat of the past pulsing through it. The secrets of this house are not dangerous. They are tender. They are made of longing, memory, and the quiet strength it takes to endure the passing of time. She replaces the board gently, rises without sound, and dusts her palms on her nightdress. Outside, the wind sighs across the shutters again. The house, now wrapped in darkness and candlelight, seems to lean in with her, protecting what is fragile, holding what is sacred. As she returns to her bedroom, she pauses one last time beside the linen closet. She doesn't open it again. But she smiles faintly, as though hearing the echoes of folded cloth and forgotten lullabies still lingering behind the door. And then she disappears into the shadows, as quietly as she came. The linen sleeps. The secrets wait. The candle burns low. And night continues its slow descent, soft and sure, across the bones of the colonial home. The night is thick now. Heavier, deeper. The kind of night that settles into the corners of a home and waits. Upstairs, the candle flames flicker more gently, smaller now, as though aware they must not burn too long. Their light washes over the wide wooden floorboards, painting them in pools of amber. Each board is unique, worn smooth by feet that have passed over them for decades. Scuffed at the edges, knotted in places, and sometimes so narrow they hum slightly when the air changes pressure. And when walked upon, they speak. The creak of the floorboards is the oldest voice in the house. Not loud, never angry, just honest. Each soft moan, each subtle shift of the timber beneath weight, is a memory whispered into the silence. Tonight, the father of the house walks carefully through the upstairs hallway. He moves slowly, partly from age, partly from knowing that every step carries a sound. His boots are gone, left by the hearth. He walks in thick woolen socks, his feet brushing over the wood like the wind brushing over tall grass. Even so, the floor creaks beneath him. One step near the window, and a long groan echoes softly. Another step past the children's door, and the faintest sigh escapes the board beneath his heel. He smiles. This is how the house speaks to him. This is how he knows it is still alive. He pauses by the banister, peering down over the stairwell. The shadows below shift gently in the candle's glow. The banister is smooth from decades of hands gliding over it, parents, children, visitors long gone. The stairs themselves are the oldest in the house. Built by hand, before the walls were even finished. Some planks are bowed from pressure. Others hold nail heads visible beneath the varnish. He places one hand on the rail and steps down carefully. The stairs sing, every creak is a chapter. Every groan, a voice from the past. The father reaches for a chair and eases into it beside the parlor's final candle. He leans forward, elbows on knees, listening, not to voices, but to the silence itself. Outside, a fox yips once in the distance. Inside, the fire has gone cold. But the floor continues to whisper. One board near the fireplace shifts slightly, likely from the cooling air. Another responds beneath the corner of the rug, a sound like the settling of old breath. He closes his eyes that he remembers when his children were small, running across these very boards, their little feet pattering in early morning light. He remembers a rainy night years ago, when water pooled at the doorstep and they had to lift every rug to keep the floors dry, and he remembers, too, how his father once showed him which floorboard lifted just enough to hide a pouch of coins during lean winters. The house teaches through sound. In modern homes, silence is engineered. But here, in the colonial world, the sounds are alive with purpose. A whisper underfoot is the home saying, I remember. He rises again, stretching his back slowly. Another creak follows, this time behind him, near the pantry. He turns, not startled. Just acknowledging. Sometimes, it is the wood adjusting to temperature. Other times, it is memory itself, pressing through the beams like smoke through slats. He picks up the candle and begins walking again. This time toward the back hallway, where the boards are narrower and the creaks are closer together. The farther he goes, the more the home seems to speak. It is not haunting. It is not eerie. It is sacred. Sacred in the way only something old and honest can be. He reaches the rear door, checks the lock, then turns back. Each step returns to him in sound, light, familiar, warm. The house is telling him, all is well. As he climbs the stairs once more, the boards echo his assent. He smiles again. Not because the sound is beautiful, but because it is true. And in a world lit only by flame and silence, truth comes to life in every creak of the floor. He reaches the top landing, extinguishes the candle, and steps into the dark. And the floorboards, ever faithful, speak one last word to the night. In the quietest corner of the house, where light barely touches, there stands an old grandfather clock. It is tall, its frame made of dark walnut, its edges gently curved, its glass face slightly fogged with age. A fine layer of dust gathers on the top, undisturbed. No one touches it now. No one dares. And yet, it lives. Its pendulum swings with the slow grace of a breath held and exhaled. Back and forth. Back and forth. As though the house itself is breathing through its rhythm. Tick, tock. Tick, tock. Not loud. Not commanding. Just steady. Anchored in time. In this colonial home, where the fire fades and the candles grow short, the sound of that clock becomes the heartbeat of the night. Everyone has long since gone to bed. The children are tucked beneath their quilts, turned toward the wall. The mother dreams of spring planting. The father lies awake, half in thought, half in sleep. And still, the clock ticks. Its chimes have not yet come. That will happen at the stroke of midnight, when the pendulum will pause just slightly, as if collecting itself, and then release the low, haunting toll of the hour. But for now, only the ticking. If you sit near it, in the darkness of the parlor where it lives, you can hear other things too. The gentle click of the gears inside, slowly working their way through the night. The faint groan of its case as the temperature shifts. And sometimes, if the wind outside is just right, you can hear the very house lean in, as if listening. Colonial families held clocks as sacred. They were rare, expensive, and difficult to maintain. Owning one was not simply practical, it was symbolic. It meant order. It meant time could be held, counted, trusted. This particular clock had come from England, passed through 2 ships and 4 storms, wrapped in linen and packed with straw. The family still speaks of its arrival. They say the youngest son was born the night it was delivered, and from then on, they believe the two shared a kind of bond, boy and clock, growing in tandem. The clock had once stood in the dining hall, then was moved to the parlor when the children grew older. There, it could be seen, but not touched. Only the father wound it. Every Sunday evening, just after supper, with a brass key kept hidden behind the Bible, click. 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 3 gentle turns of the key. No more. And the pendulum would begin its gentle sway again. Tick, tock. Tick, tock. The face of the clock bears Roman numerals, faded slightly now, but still readable by candlelight. Beneath the hands, a small etching of a sailing ship marks its place of origin. Above the numerals, a painted moon will slowly turns with each day, marking the lunar phases. No1 checks it for accuracy. It is not needed for appointments or timetables. It is not in service to haste. It is simply time itself, living quietly in a wooden case. Tonight, as the rest of the world sleeps, the clock remains awake. It has seen generations come and go. It has counted hours in silence during winters so cold the ink froze in the well. It has chimed during births and deaths, sermons and solstice dinners. It has been wound by hands that no longer live, and will be wound again by hands not yet grown. And now, the hour draws near. The clock's gears tighten. The pendulum slows just slightly in anticipation. Then, it begins. Gong. The first chime echoes through the parlor, low and full. The sound wraps itself around the room like a shawl, soft, encompassing. Gong. Another follows, spaced perfectly, with breath between. Upstairs, no one stirs. Not because they do not hear it, but because they expect it. It is part of the home's rhythm, as familiar as heartbeat or breath. Gong. 12 in all. And then, silence. The pendulum resumes its calm swing. Tick, tock. The moon through the window casts a soft light across the clock's face. Dust glitters briefly, then settles. There is a comfort in the passage of time. Especially here, where moments do not rush. In a colonial home, the hours were not a burden. They were markers. Time to rise. Time to boil water. Time to churn, to mend, to sweep, to rest. The clock's voice reminded the family of these tasks, not with urgency, but with presence. To hear the chime was not to be interrupted. It was to be reminded, you are alive, and time is still with you. The father will rise before the dawn to stoke the fire. The children will stretch and yawn before the first light touches the quilts. And the clock will continue its watch. Tick, tock. Unmoved by seasons, unmoved by storms. Only loyal to time. And as the candle's final flicker dies away in the parlor, the clock remains, tall, still, and listening. Its pendulum swings. Its breath continues. Its story is never rushed. Just told, 1 second at a time. The moon hangs high now, silent and silver, casting its quiet light upon the sloping rooftops and stone chimneys of the colonial village. It filters down through the branches of sleeping trees and pools softly on the wooden shingles of the old family home. Inside, the house has grown stiller, if such a thing is possible. Even the candlelight has begun to withdraw, leaving only faint embers in the hearth and one dim taper left burning near the bed. But the moon. The moon does not need flame. It reaches across time. And tonight, its pale beams find their way through the tiny, wavy panes of a leaded glass window, just above the staircase landing, where no one lingers during the day. This window is unlike the others. It is old, older than most in the house. Each pane is hand-blown, uneven in thickness, some with gentle bubbles trapped in the glass. The lead cames between them have dulled to a soft gray. And the wood around the frame creaks when the wind presses against it. No one remembers who installed it. Some say it was brought from Holland, tucked in a crate of tea and pewter. Others whisper it came from a church, salvaged when a chapel in the north collapsed in a spring storm. Wherever it came from, it has stood here for generations. By day, it barely catches notice. But by night, when the house sighs into slumber, it begins its quiet work. Tonight, the moonlight flows through it like water, bending slightly, scattering in soft ripples across the stairwell wall. It paints delicate silver patterns on the old wood floor. It touches the banister, highlighting the grooves worn smooth by decades of fingers trailing up and down. It illuminates dust motes as they swirl in the quiet air, catching each one like a note in a lullaby. And though no one watches, the window is not alone. Just beneath it sits a small wooden chest, handmade, with iron hinges and a lock that no longer works. It holds letters. Bundles of them. Some tied with faded ribbons, others loose, their corners frayed. They were placed there over many years, by mothers and fathers, children and cousins. Notes of love, of mourning, of hope. The moonlight touches these letters, too. As though reading them. As though remembering the stories whispered into them so long ago. In a home without electricity, windows are everything. They guide the rhythms of the household. They allow in the first blue of morning. They signal when it is time to bake, or gather wood, or light the lamps. And at night, they remind the house that the world outside still breathes. The leaded glass window, with its imperfect panes, acts like a prism, breaking moonlight into gentle lines and strange angles. Tonight, a faint arc appears on the landing wall. No one sees it, but it's there. A soft bend of moonlight, like a smile, hovering just above the old chest. Downstairs, the clock continues its calm ticking. Upstairs, the rafters rest in stillness. And between them, this sliver of magic. If you stood before the window now, barefoot on the wooden step, you would see your own reflection faintly cast in the glass, framed in the glow of the moon. You might place your palm on the pane and feel the coolness of the night seeping gently through. You might hear the whisper of the wind as it brushes the shutters. You might even feel, just for a moment, the sense that the house is watching with you. In colonial times, moonlight was more than scenery, it was a quiet companion. It helped mothers find their way to the cradle without stumbling. It helped farmers check the barn doors in the middle of the night. It helped young daughters read forbidden letters in secret. And it helped dreamers dream. It is no accident that this window faces east, catching both moonrise and, eventually, the dawn. It is a sentinel of transitions. Dark to light. Sleep to waking. And in the moments between, it becomes a painting of shadows and peace. The moon begins its descent now. Its beams grow more slanted, stretching longer across the staircase wall. The arc fades. The dust settles. But the window remains. Still. Patient. Silent. Waiting for the next night, and the next moon. Some stories are told in words. Others in light. This chapter belongs to the latter. A story written in beams and glass, across generations. The house does not speak it aloud. But it feels it. Each night, when the last candle gutters, and the fire sighs its final breath, this tiny patch of moonlight, through old, leaded glass, tells a story no tongue can utter. And somehow, it is understood. The candle burns low now, its base a pool of soft wax, melted and still warm. The flame dances in the gentle hush of the room, steady, quiet, yet alive, casting flickering shadows across the old writing desk by the wall. This desk, carved by hand nearly a century ago, bears the marks of many lives. Ink stains near the corners. Knife scratches where a quill was once trimmed. A small circular burn where someone, long ago, let a taper fall too close. It is not a grand desk. Just sturdy pine, darkened with time, wax, and weather. But tonight, it becomes a theater. A stage for secrets. A setting for words never spoken aloud. A place where one sits, alone in the quiet, with only parchment, ink, and thought. Beside the candle lies a fresh sheet of paper, its edges curled ever so slightly from the dampness in the air. The quill, made from a goose feather, is freshly cut, the nib narrow and sharp. There is no sound in the house now but the low ticking of the clock and the occasional creak from the beams above. It is the perfect time for a letter. In the colonial home, letters were not dashed off carelessly. They were events. They were moments of pause in a life filled with toil and duty. To sit and write a letter meant that something mattered. A thought. A longing. A bit of news, or the ache of distance. Tonight, a hand, gentle and patient, reaches for the ink pot. The nib dips slowly, carefully, into the dark pool, drawing up just enough to form a word or two. Then, with the flame casting golden light upon the paper, the writing begins. Each stroke is deliberate. Each word weighed and chosen. There is no haste. The letter is not written for business, nor for command. It is a letter of affection. Perhaps to a cousin far away, or a sister recently married. Or perhaps to someone not yet spoken of aloud, someone cherished in the quiet corners of the heart. The candle flickers again. Its light catches the droplets of ink still wet, turning them into tiny beads of night. Outside, the wind has quieted. And the stars look down through the leaded glass, curious, as if listening. On the desk, beside the letter, rests a stick of sealing wax, deep red, with a faint scent of beeswax and pine resin. It has been used many times before, the end is blackened and uneven. Once the words are written, the paper is folded carefully, edges aligned, creases smoothed with the side of a palm. A name is written on the outside. Then, the wax is lit. The flame catches the edge, softening the stick, and a few thick drops fall to the paper seam. Molten, dark, and shining. A brass seal presses into it, firm and silent. When it lifts, a symbol remains. Perhaps a family crest. Or just an initial. A sun, or a tree, or a rose. Each one unique. Each one a signature of time. Letters were not merely written in this age, they were felt. They were infused with breath, and warmth, and the hum of candlelight. Only stillness, and meaning. The door to the bedroom creaks open gently, and the warm scent of beeswax and linen greets you. The candle in hand casts a soft circle of light, dancing on the walls, plaster faded to a pale gold, wooden beams overhead darkened with age. The room is quiet now. Very quiet. The kind of quiet that feels sacred, as though the air itself is holding its breath. In this colonial home, nighttime is a ritual of stillness. The bed waits beneath a canopy of hand-sewn fabric, its posts tall and carved with the patience of old hands. A thick quilt lies folded back, revealing sheets of coarse linen, cool to the touch, but warmed by the last of the fire's memory. Each bed in the house is a place of reverence. They are not made hastily. The mattress is stuffed with straw or wool, turned and aired with care every morning. The pillows are firm but forgiving, covered in cases that smell faintly of lavender and sun, air-dried on a line just outside the kitchen. And the quilt. The quilt is the true storyteller here. Its patches speak of years gone by, a square from a dress once worn to church, another from a child's smock, a third made of fabric brought from England decades ago. Hand-stitched, it carries within it memories that no voice ever had to say aloud. As the candle is set upon the bedside table, the flame reflects in the pane of the window, doubled and trembling like a sigh. One sits at the edge of the bed. Not hurried. Not distracted. Just present, slipping off worn leather shoes, folding a shawl neatly at the footboard, pulling the coverlet back inch by inch. In the colonial night, time moves differently. It's not measured in hours or minutes. It's measured in the soft rustle of fabric, the hush of wind beneath the eaves, and the long exhale that comes when the body finally lies down after a day of honest labor. The fire has gone out in the hearth, and the floorboards now cool beneath bare feet. A cat, silent as a thought, curls into a ball at the foot of the bed, its purring a soft, steady lull. Beyond the window, the moon has risen higher, its glow dusting the tops of the nearby trees in silver. An owl calls once, then again, long and low, like a voice from another world. This is the moment of true stillness. The mind slows. The body softens. And the room listens. You might hear the faint whisper of a prayer. Not spoken loudly, but mouthed into the linen air with eyes closed. A prayer for the children sleeping in the next room. For health. For a good harvest. For peace, if such a thing is meant to come. And then, silence again. The candle flickers lower now, its flame gently bowing toward sleep. The ceiling above is bare, except for the old wooden crossbeam that splits the room in two, a reminder of how things were made, not by machine, but by hand, one plank at a time. Somewhere beneath the floorboards, a mouse stirs. Then settles. Even the mice are quieter at this hour. In the corner, a simple dresser holds a hairbrush. High above the quiet bedrooms, past the creaking stairs and dim hallways, there lies a door rarely opened. Its handle is simple, cool to the touch, and its keyhole, small and rusted, hasn't turned in weeks. But tonight, the wind presses just right, and a draft from the chimney draws upward, coaxing a soft breath from beneath the attic door. No one is awake to hear it. No one but the house itself. The attic of this colonial home is a world apart. Dust rests like snowfall over every beam. The air is dry, tinged with the smell of aged wood, dried herbs, and old paper. No light reaches here but the pale spill of moonlight through a tiny diamond-shaped window on the far wall. And yet, the attic keeps its own kind of light. A quiet glow of memory, unlit by flame, unbothered by time. A single step up into the room causes the boards beneath to sigh, not in protest, but in recognition. The attic remembers every visitor it has ever had. Every chest opened, every secret whispered into boxes never meant to be reopened. Along one wall, a row of trunks sits lined like silent sentinels. Some are wrapped in brittle leather, others in rough cloth bound with rope. One bears initials burned into its side, JP 1739. No one remembers who that is anymore. But the trunk remains, sealed and slightly bowed from the weight of years. There is no rush in an attic like this. Time sits gently here. You might kneel by one of the trunks, brush off the dust, and lift its lid. Inside, wrapped in linen and tucked between pages of yellowing newspaper, are fragments of a life lived long before yours. A child's shoe, scuffed and faded. A broken teacup, carefully wrapped though clearly irreparable. A bundle of letters tied in ribbon, the ink so faint it can barely be read. Each item tells part of a story. Not the whole story. Just a whisper. Near the window stands a cradle, small, empty, unmoved in years. Its legs are uneven, and one of the spindles is missing, replaced with a bit of string. Someone couldn't bear to throw it away. Not then. Not now. To sit in the attic is to feel the weight of generations around you. Not in burden, but in presence. The rafters above bear not just cobwebs, but the soot of old chimney smoke, blackened by winters gone. The floorboards are wide and uneven, each one cut by hand. They groan when stepped upon, but never break. They've borne trunks, tools, dried corn, forgotten toys, and tears. In one corner sits a spinning wheel, now motionless. Its wheel leans slightly, one peg cracked, but it once spun wool into thread by the hands of a woman long gone. If you listen closely, you might even hear the faint ghost of its turning, like the hush of fabric passing through fingers. No one uses the attic now. Not often. But it is not abandoned. It waits. It remembers. Colonial families understood something modern minds often forget. Not everything must be used to be valuable. Not every space must be filled with noise. Some places must simply hold the past. There's a faint trace of lavender in the air, likely from a dried bundle hung decades ago. Nearby, a quilt lies half-folded over a barrel. Its edges are frayed. It may have been left behind accidentally. Or perhaps purposefully, a soft token offered to the dust. The window, small and slightly warped, lets in a shaft of moonlight so pure it seems painted. It stretches across the attic floor, over trunks, over shadows, until it lands squarely on a wooden chair with a high back and a worn seat. Someone once sat there, many nights ago. Perhaps to escape the noise. Perhaps to read by lamplight. Perhaps to grieve alone. The chair hasn't moved since. The attic doesn't require company. Only care. Only memory. Outside, a gust of wind shifts a tree branch. It brushes softly against the side of the house. A few flakes of dust fall from the rafters. The house sighs in response, joints tightening as the night deepens. And the attic listens. It always has. Even when no one else does. This space, this quiet, untouched place, is the heart of the home's memory. A museum without labels. A story without ending. A prayer whispered in dust. The cradle, the letters, the broken cup, they do not ask to be remembered. They simply are. And in their stillness, they keep the house alive. The attic does not sleep. It watches. And in the hush of a colonial night, that is enough. It begins as a whisper. A soft pattering upon the cedar shingles, almost too gentle to notice at first. But the house feels it, as though the sky itself has leaned close to speak in soft syllables of rain. The colonial home, wrapped in silence, welcomes it. Outside, the world grows darker, not with nightfall, but with the hush of clouds thick and low. The village beyond the window, its lanes, its thatched eaves and brick chimneys, melts into shadow and mist. Candles flicker behind glass panes, casting golden halos into the damp. Inside, the air feels closer, the wood grain a touch darker, warmed not by fire, but by the closeness of earth and weather. The roof groans slightly under the first heavier drops. And then it comes. The steady, delicate rhythm of rain on wood. There are no gutters to catch it, no storm drains to guide its fall. It slides gently off the shingles and lands in the garden, in the clay pots near the doorstep, on the window panes with a soft, tapping sound. It is not a storm. It is a lullaby. And within the colonial home, that lullaby is heard in every room. The kitchen, now empty and cool, holds the scent of herbs and faint ash. The kettle, forgotten on its hook above the hearth, rocks ever so slightly with each breath of breeze from the chimney. In the parlor, the curtains tremble. The rain touches the glass and blurs the outside world until even the orchard trees become soft smudges of green and gray. A wooden chest near the wall bears a sheen of dampness. Not wet, but aware. The kind of moisture that lives in the walls of old homes. It doesn't damage, it remembers. Upstairs, someone might stir in their bed, only to turn, smile faintly in sleep, and let the sound of the rain draw them deeper into dreams. Colonial families often welcomed rain like this. It cooled the air. It softened the straw in the barn and brought a hush over the fields. It meant time indoors. Mending clothes, reading by firelight, polishing boots, or telling stories that could only be shared on such gentle days. You can almost hear it, the creak of the spinning wheel, the soft thread pulling through linen, the murmur of voices rising above the patter of rain. Tonight, even the attic listens. Dusty beams darken ever so slightly. The old cradle rocks once, as though moved by the breath of time itself. Water trails along the slanted glass of the attic window like veins of silver. The home was built for this. Its eaves overhang for shelter. Its floorboards swell just enough to close the gaps. The shutters, though worn, still hold fast. Every nail, every joint, every creaking stair, formed by hands that expected nights like these. Downstairs, a lone candle still burns on the kitchen table. Its light dances in rhythm with the rain, flickering, swaying, steadying again. A pewter spoon beside it catches the glow, casting a tiny reflection across the wood grain. The table itself, worn smooth by hundreds of quiet meals, now rests. There's a chair turned slightly askew. Someone left in a hurry. Or maybe they meant to return. A napkin folded in thirds rests at the seat's edge. The rain does not ask questions. It simply continues. Outside, puddles begin to form along the cobblestone path. The well bucket fills slowly, drop by drop. The oak tree sways gently, its leaves whispering secrets in the language only rain understands. A horse in the stable shifts in its stall, hay rustling. A chicken clucks once in protest before settling again. Even the animals know this is a time for stillness. Colonial nights like these were moments to pause. To listen. To remember that the world outside the candle's glow is vast and unknowable, and yet somehow, still close. Still kind. In the children's room, a doll lies beside a handmade quilt, its stitched eyes catching a soft glimmer from the candlelight across the hall. Little shoes, lined in a row near the foot of the bed, are slightly damp from earlier play. They'll dry by morning. The walls of the house hum faintly now. Not with voices. Not with fire. But with the sound of rain on roof boards, steady, even, eternal. There's comfort in that kind of music. It holds no urgency. No ending. Only rhythm. Only presence. As the hour deepens, the rain eases slightly, shifting from tap to whisper, from whisper to mist. The windows begin to clear at the corners. The scent of wet earth rises through the cracks in the floor. The hearth breathes in, as if welcoming the cool. A moth flutters once near the candle and disappears. The flame leans, bows, and rights itself again. Still here. Still steady. Like the house. Like the rain. And so the night deepens, wrapped in the breath of clouds and the hush of falling water. The colonial home sleeps. But its roof listens. Its walls hum. And the rain continues to fall. The rain outside has softened now. A fine, silvery mist hanging in the quiet air. Within the colonial home, warmth still lingers, like the breath of an old story settling between pages. In the bedrooms upstairs, the beds are layered deep with hand-stitched quilts, heavy, textured, and comforting. Each square sewn by careful hands, each thread carrying memories. Scraps of a Sunday dress, a child's swaddling cloth, the lining from an old waistcoat. The fabric speaks in silence, woven stories covering those who dream beneath. The wind sighs gently against the windows. Inside, not a whisper. Only breath. Only blankets. Only sleep. The eldest daughter lies in her narrow bed, her hands folded gently atop the coverlet. A candle on the far table has long gone out, leaving only the warm aroma of beeswax behind. Her hair, once in neat braids, has unraveled slightly, curling on the linen pillow beneath her cheek. A dream has found her. She doesn't stir, but her breath grows softer, as if the dream were pulling her into a deeper meadow, somewhere beyond the orchard, beyond the fence, where time slows to the hush of falling petals. In the room across the hall, two younger children share a bed. Their toes touch beneath the quilts. One has kicked the covers halfway off in sleep, exposing a small foot with a fading ink smudge from the day's lesson. The other mumbles softly, a string of nonsense, the residue of an afternoon adventure in the garden. Their quilt is stitched in star patterns, bright scraps of red, blue, mustard yellow. A symbol of hope sown during a leaner winter, perhaps. The kind that kept spirits warm when firewood was low. Each family had them, these heavy, story-laden quilts. Sometimes made over months, or even years. Sometimes gifted at birth. And sometimes, wrapped around the shoulders of someone lost in mourning. But tonight, they are only comfort. They press close around the sleeping forms, warming hearts already softened by a long day's work in candlelit prayers. Down the hall, in the master bedroom, the parents lie in a bed carved from local pine. The headboard bears the marks of hand tools, chisels and saws, crafted in a time when building a bed was a labor of love, not purchase. On the wall nearby, a single portrait watches quietly. Its frame is darkened by age, its edges frayed by the years. The woman in the painting once walked these halls. Perhaps a grandmother, or someone even further back. Her gaze is kind. Unblinking. And in the candlelight from the small taper left burning on the bedside table, her expression seems almost to shift. Not haunting. Only remembering. The man stirs slightly. A creak from the bedpost. He tugs the quilt higher, then rests again. Sleep in a colonial home was sacred. Not rushed. Not stolen. It was earned. Through plowing, cooking, stitching, hauling, cleaning, teaching, praying, tending to livestock, walking to market, writing letters, and gathering wood. The body ached at night. But in the stillness, under those covers, it healed. It dreamed. And dreams back then were not always light. Sometimes, they bore the weight of worry, about the harvest, about news from England, about a child's cough that hadn't gone away. But the quilt was always there. To hold those dreams. To anchor the sleeper. Sometimes, dreams were of freedom. Of new land, of future generations, of peace in a world where change came slowly, like the swing of a well bucket or the bending of branches in the orchard. Tonight, the dreams are gentle. The house ensures it. Its beams groan once, as if to check in on the sleeping family. The rain, having passed, leaves only quiet dew. And the air, now still, carries the scent of lavender tucked into sachets in the drawer, and rosemary dried in a bundle near the hearth. Outside, a faint owl calls. Then silence again. Not empty silence, but full. A silence that cradles, that holds each dreamer in its arms and rocks them slowly, like the old cradle in the attic. A blanket has slipped slightly from one of the beds. Not cold enough to wake anyone, but enough for the quilt to shift, just slightly, showing the soft flannel underside hand-dyed in faded green. The pattern is worn, threadbare in places, but still strong. Strong enough to hold generations of dreams. There's a myth some mothers whispered to their children during these years. That a quilt could catch bad dreams like spiderwebs, trapping them in the threads and only letting the good ones through. A superstition, maybe. But somehow, tonight, it feels true. Even the house dreams now. Its shutters sway gently. Its floorboards sleep. The hearth is cold but content. And above all, wrapped in moonlight and woven warmth, are the sleeping ones. Held. Covered. Dreaming. Midnight has come quietly. There are no clocks here to strike the hour, no chimes echoing through stone halls. Only the soft breath of a home wrapped in shadows and dreams. But something has shifted. The candle by the bedside has long flickered out, leaving behind only the faintest scent of cooled wax. Its smoke curled gently toward the beams, then vanished. The embers in the hearth are completely cold now, gray and still, their glow a memory tucked into yesterday. Yet through the crack beneath the front door, something stirs. A hush of air, cool and playful. It slips into the room as if it has done so 1,000 times before. A midnight visitor, uninvited but never unwelcome. The wind. Not a storm, not a gale. Just a thin, drifting breeze. It carries with it the scent of wet earth, of pine from the nearby woods, and the faintest sweetness of drying hay in the loft. The midnight wind moves with care, as though not to wake anyone. It brushes past the wooden floorboards of the hallway, now smooth from the bare feet of generations. It glides past the spinning wheel, still from the day's work. It lifts a single corner of a hanging apron, light as lace, forgotten on its hook beside the pantry door. In the upstairs bedroom, the curtain stirs. Just a breath. The child in the bed shifts slightly but does not wake. The breeze curls around the quilt's edges, tucking itself in between fabric folds, curious and quiet. It touches a strand of loose hair on the pillow and sets it dancing. Then lets it fall. This wind, so soft, almost seems alive. In colonial times, people believed the wind carried messages, sometimes warnings, sometimes blessings. A strong wind might mean a storm, or a change of season. But a gentle wind, one like this, was often called a visitation. The kind of wind that passed through an open attic and closed a door behind it. The kind that made you pause and wonder if someone from long ago had just passed by. A grandmother. A child. A neighbor whose voice still lived in the house's bones. It moves now through the master bedroom. There, the quilt lifts slightly at the foot of the bed. The man stirs. Only for a moment. Then his chest rises slowly, and he settles again, sighing into the darkness. The wind lingers by the window where the shutters aren't quite latched. The moonlight, soft and silvery, spills in now like melted butter across the wooden floor. A moth flutters once against the glass and is gone. And the wind, as if shy of overstaying its welcome, begins to retreat. Down the stairs, past the grandfather clock with its sleeping pendulum. Through the parlor, where the firewood still sits stacked in the nook, dry and fragrant. It moves through the entryway where the boots remain by the door, mud dried on their soles from the previous day's work in the garden. Then finally, The wind slips once more beneath the heavy door it came through, and is gone. Outside, the garden is quiet. The herbs hang in bundles, leaves curled inward, dreaming their own slow dreams. The chickens are still in the coop, heads tucked. The fence creaks once, and settles. And the stars? They remain. Bright. Watchful. Eternal. Inside, the silence returns, soft and whole, like a lullaby you don't need to finish to remember. Sleep still holds the home. In a colonial world, nights were not for noise. They were for feeling the weight of peace after long days of toil. They were for healing hands roughened by flax, for resting backs bent by fieldwork, and for letting the mind wander through places only dreams knew. The midnight wind will come again. It always does. But tonight, it was just passing through. To check on things. To kiss the quilt edges. To touch the sleeping children's curls. To breathe one soft reminder. That time passes. But the stillness of a sleeping home, especially one warmed by candlelight and love, never truly fades. The sky begins its slow exhale. It starts with a change in shade. Not quite blue, not yet gold. Just the faintest softening of darkness. Inside the colonial home, sleep still holds the family in its gentle arms. But the world is changing beyond the shutters. The rooster hasn't crowed yet. The church bell hasn't rung. Even the trees outside are still half lulled in their twilight trance. But inside the parlor, something stirs. Light. Not the fierce light of noon or the golden drama of sunset. This is a pale, pearl-colored glow, the kind that only comes in the earliest folds of morning. It creeps carefully through the slats of the wooden shutters. It rests on the windowsill where a spool of thread sits forgotten beside a sewing needle and a folded piece of linen. The glow moves slowly, touching the pewter candlestick left on the mantel, gilding the edge of the pinewood rocking chair, brushing over the bookshelf where two volumes lean tired against one another. Then, it meets the wainscot walls. Those panels, hand-planed decades ago, now bear the soft strokes of time. The paint, once a deeper ochre, has faded in places. Knots in the wood, like sleepy eyes, peer out beneath the pale light. It's here the morning makes its first real entrance. The glow brightens, still soft, still fragile, but now golden at the edges. It rises up the wall, casting long shadows from the crossbeams. In the hallway, a door creaks gently open. The floorboards groan, just a whisper, as the mother steps barefoot from her room. She doesn't speak. She moves slowly, reverently, as if trying not to disturb the sacred hush of daybreak. A shawl wraps around her shoulders. She passes by the fireless hearth, where last night's embers now lie cool and gray. And in her hand, a tinderbox. This moment is centuries old. Generations of women have walked these floors at first light. Their hands have struck flint just so, coaxing life from stone and steel. Their fingers have warmed pots of porridge, folded linen, measured flour. Now, she bends beside the hearth. The spark flares once. Then again. Until finally, a small curl of smoke rises from the tinder. She shields it with her palm. Breathes. The flame catches. The first fire of the day is born. Outside, a single bird calls out. Then another, the chorus is beginning. In the upstairs bedroom, a child rolls over and rubs her eyes. She doesn't rise yet. But her dreams have shifted. They carry warmth now. And light. Downstairs, the kettle is placed near the flame. The scent of ash and copper fills the air. Soon, tea will steep, and the scent of herbs will mix with the wood smoke. The man stirs too. He pulls on his boots. His hands are quiet, practiced. He pauses at the window, where the shutters remain closed. He doesn't open them. He lets the dawn enter through the cracks. slivers of gold on the edge of his calloused hands. There is something sacred about these early moments. Before the chores. Before the walk to the barn. Before the bustle of another day in colonial life. This light. The kind that brushes the wainscot walls. That finds its way into the curves of the banister. That makes the pewter glow and the quilt shimmer. This is the kind of light you can only see when you wake up slowly. When the day unfolds like a story. Page by page. The home begins to come alive. The table is cleared of last night's crumbs. Water is drawn. Chickens are let out into the dew-kissed yard. But the candle on the bedside table remains. Unlit. Melted slightly from the night before. Its wick blackened, curled like a sleeping cat's tail. It will wait there until the evening, when its glow will once again dance across the ceiling beams, casting quiet shadows on the paneled walls. And the cycle will begin again. In a world lit by candlelight, time feels slower. More intentional. More tender. Each sunrise is a small miracle. Each shadow a piece of history. Each breath of morning air a gift passed down from those who rose before us. In aprons and waistcoats. In silence and simplicity. The pale glow fades now, overtaken by the rising sun. The walls are fully bathed in day. The secrets of the night, once held close by firelight, have returned to their corners, waiting for dusk to come again. And as the village stirs, as the people rise and the church bell rings, the colonial home stands quietly, still, proud, and whole. Its candlelight may be gone for now, but its warmth, its history, remains in the wainscot walls. Always.